I think all of these people are trying to document a truth. And when it gets to like other gods and giants created man and
well, Enoch talks about
man.
that.
Yeah, oh, I know.
Which is crazy.
I know. It's wild stuff.
The research database went dark overnight. A groundbreaking project using artificial intelligence to translate the lost Book of Enoch had just made a breakthrough. But before the findings could be peer-reviewed, the servers were wiped clean.
Why would anybody think that that would be the smart thing to do, is to limit the access of that information to a very small amount of people?
Whispers in the academic community point to one source, the Vatican. For centuries, this ancient text, filled with stories of fallen angels and cosmic secrets, was kept out of the Bible. Now it seems the terrifying truths the AI uncovered about humanity's origins are secrets the Church will do anything to keep buried, revealing a cover-up thousands of years in the making. The book they didn't want you to read. The story of the Book of Enoch isn't just about a lost text. It's about a truth that was deliberately buried. You see, for people watching this, the Bible feels like a complete story, a sacred library handed down through the ages. But not all things are what they seem. What many overlooked is that in the early days of Judaism and Christianity, the library was much, much bigger. Many books were read, studied, and believed in, only to be cut out later by councils and committees who decided what was official and what was too dangerous for the public to know. And at the top of that dangerous list was the Book of Enoch. The most shocking fact is that this isn't some obscure text that nobody cared about. The thing nobody tells you is that the Book of Enoch was hugely popular for hundreds of years around the time of Jesus. It was so important that it's even quoted directly in the New Testament. The Epistle of Jude, a canonical book of the Bible, literally quotes a prophecy from Enoch word for word to warn of coming judgment. Early church fathers like Tertullian and Origen treated it with immense respect, considering it genuine scripture. So, the big question is, what happened? Why did a book so influential, so revered, get kicked out of the club? To put it mildly, the contents were explosive. The Book of Enoch tells a story that the official version of Genesis only hints at. It claims to be the first-hand account of Enoch, the great-grandfather of Noah, a man who, according to Genesis, walked with God and was so righteous that he never experienced death but was taken directly into heaven. And you can see this everywhere. In the stories, that is. The book details what he saw on his journeys through the heavens. He describes a group of angels known as the Watchers, who looked down from above and became consumed with desire for human women. Defying God's command, 200 of these beings descended to Mount Hermon, a peak of about 9,000 feet, and made a pact to take human wives. This wasn't just a celestial romance, it was a cosmic crime. These fallen angels taught humanity forbidden secrets that would lead to its ruin. They taught the art of making swords and shields, unleashing warfare upon the world. They showed humans how to make jewelry and cosmetics, introducing vanity and deception. They revealed the secrets of sorcery, spellcasting, and astrology, turning humanity away from God and towards dark arts. But the most terrifying result of their rebellion was their offspring. The children of the Watchers and human women were a hybrid race of giants called the Nephilim. These giants consumed all of humanity's resources, and when the food ran out, they began to turn on humans themselves, creating an age of terror and chaos that ultimately led God to cleanse the earth with the Great Flood. For early church councils trying to establish a clear, simple doctrine, this story was a nightmare. It complicated the simple narrative of Adam and Eve's original sin by suggesting that a second, even greater fall had occurred, this one initiated by angels. It introduced a complex angelic hierarchy, cosmic wars, and a level of mythological detail that felt more like a pagan epic than a sacred text. And so, the decision was made. The Book of Enoch was too strange, too detailed, and too dangerous. It was sidelined, labeled as Apocrypha, and systematically excluded from what would become the Old Testament. For over 1,000 years, it was thought to be lost forever, a ghost of a forbidden history. But the story didn't end there. A complete version survived, hidden in plain sight. The Ethiopian Ark. The thing that nobody tells you is that while Western Europe was busy erasing the Book of Enoch from its memory, one of the world's oldest Christian nations was carefully preserving it. High in the mountains of Ethiopia, an ancient form of Christianity survived, isolated and untouched by the debates and councils of Rome. The Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, one of the first Christian communities in the world, had its own Bible. And their Bible was bigger. It contained 81 books, far more than the 66 in the Protestant canon, and right there, nestled among the familiar books of the Old Testament, was the complete Book of Enoch. For centuries, European scholars knew of its existence only through fragments and references. They knew it had been important, but they had no full text to study. Then, in the late 1700s, a Scottish explorer named James Bruce journeyed into Ethiopia on a quest to find the source of the Blue Nile. While there, he learned of the sacred texts and managed to acquire 3 complete copies of the Book of Enoch, written in Ge'ez, an ancient Ethiopian language. When he brought them back to Europe in 1773, it was like finding a living dinosaur. Scholars were stunned. Here was a book thought to be lost for over a millennium, perfectly preserved. But even with a full text, the problems weren't over. You see, the Ge'ez manuscripts were translations of a Greek version, which was itself likely a translation of the original Aramaic or Hebrew. With each translation, nuances are lost and meanings can shift. For 200 years, scholars argued over which parts were authentic and which were later additions. The story was there, but its true original form was still a puzzle. Then, in 1947, everything changed. A Bedouin shepherd, looking for a lost goat, threw a rock into a cave near the Dead Sea at a place called Qumran. He heard the sound of shattering pottery. What he found inside would become the greatest archaeological discovery of the 20th century, the Dead Sea Scrolls. Hidden in those caves was a library from 2,000 years ago, preserved by the dry desert air. Among the scrolls were the oldest known copies of biblical books, and scattered among them were multiple fragments of the Book of Enoch, written in its original Aramaic. The most shocking fact is that more copies of Enoch were found at Qumran than almost any other book of the Old Testament, except for the Psalms and Deuteronomy. This was definitive proof that Enoch wasn't a fringe text. It was a cornerstone of Jewish belief during the time of Jesus and his apostles. This discovery created a new challenge. Now, researchers had the Ethiopian version, Greek fragments, and the ancient Aramaic scrolls. The puzzle pieces were all on the table, but they were scattered and broken. No single human could perfectly align all these different versions, cross-reference every tiny variation, and reconstruct the book's original, untainted meaning. The task was simply too massive, the data too complex. It would take a different kind of mind, one that could see patterns across languages and centuries, one that never got tired, and one that had no preconceived notions. It would take an artificial intelligence. What that AI found was more than just a translation. It was a revelation. The Watcher's true secret. Many people are crazy about the idea of AI, but its true power isn't just in creating art or answering questions. It's in finding patterns in chaos. A team of linguists and data scientists, working on a project that allegedly received initial funding from a secular historical foundation, decided to do what no human could. They fed every known piece of the Book of Enoch into a powerful neural network. They scanned the high-resolution images of the Dead Sea Scroll fragments, the complete Ethiopian Ge'ez manuscripts, every known Greek and Latin quote, thousands of data points in dead languages. The AI's task was to reverse engineer the original text, to find the ghost of the Aramaic original that existed before any translations. The first results that came back were stunning. What many overlooked were the astronomical sections of the book. For centuries, these chapters were seen as a clunky, almost boring description of a primitive solar calendar. But the AI revealed something else entirely. It wasn't just a calendar. It was a complex series of interlocking mathematical and astronomical codes. According to the leaked and later suppressed findings of the project, the AI identified specific star alignments described in the book that were not just symbolic. They were coordinates. They pointed to specific points in the sky at a precise moment in the distant past, a moment that predated known human civilization by thousands of years. But the most terrifying discovery came from the section about the Watchers. The thing nobody tells you is that the human translations always had a mythological, almost fairy tale-like quality. But the AI reconstructed text was different. It was cold, technical, and precise. It described the secrets the Watchers taught not as magic and sorcery, but as advanced technology. The text for making swords was closer to a description of metallurgy and advanced alloy creation. The section on enchantments allegedly described methods of manipulating the human mind through resonant frequencies and patterns of light. To put it mildly, the AI translation reframed the Watchers not as fallen angels in a spiritual sense, but as beings of advanced knowledge, perhaps from somewhere else, who interfered with early humanity. The most controversial finding centered on the creation of the Nephilim. The AI-restored text allegedly contained passages that read less like a story of supernatural beings having children, and more like a clinical report on genetic engineering. It described how the Watchers twisted the essence of the human form and combined it with their own, resulting in creatures of immense size and strength, but with violent, unstable tendencies. In essence, the AI suggested that the Book of Enoch wasn't a religious myth. It was a distorted record of a prehistoric event, an encounter with a technologically superior non-human intelligence that uplifted humanity with forbidden knowledge, but nearly destroyed it in the process. The Great Flood wasn't just a punishment for human sin, but a desperate cosmic reset to wipe the slate clean of a catastrophic genetic experiment. This translation changed everything. It turned a religious text into something that looked more like a science fiction warning, and it was a message the Vatican allegedly could not allow to see the light of day. The Secret Council. News of the AI translation project and its terrifying findings didn't stay secret for long. It began leaking out through academic backchannels and onto fringe internet forums. At first, it was dismissed as another conspiracy theory, but then something happened that gave it credibility. Silence. The project's website, which had been publishing preliminary data, suddenly went offline. The lead researchers, who were once active on academic social networks, stopped posting. Their university department issued a vague statement about reevaluating the project's direction and then refused further comment. According to anonymous sources cited in alternative media, the pressure came from one place: the Vatican. You see, the Vatican Apostolic Archive isn't just a library. It's one of the most sophisticated intelligence-gathering operations in the world, especially when it comes to matters of history and theology that could challenge the Church's authority. The idea of an AI proving that the Book of Enoch was a record of ancient aliens or genetic manipulation wasn't just a theological problem, it was an existential threat. Think about it. If the story of the Watchers is a technological event, not a spiritual one, it reframes the entire concept of original sin, of demons, and of salvation. The most shocking fact is that if humanity's fall was caused by an external, non-human force that tinkered with our DNA, it fundamentally alters the narrative of guilt and redemption that has been central to Christianity for 2,000 years. It suggests that the evil in the world might not be a product of human choice alone, but a leftover echo of a cosmic interference. According to the narrative that has gained traction online and was touched upon by Joe Rogan, the Vatican's response was swift and decisive, but not public. There was no grand denouncement or papal decree. The thing nobody tells you is that in the modern world, power operates more subtly. The funding foundation for the AI project allegedly received a visit from high-level Vatican representatives. Quiet phone calls were made to the university's chancellors. The message was clear: this line of inquiry is dangerous and must be stopped. Was the Book of Enoch a myth, or is it a forgotten history of our species? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more hidden truths.